I loved the teams vids and not player specific. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit different because usually my content, well, first off, obviously I make more videos about players than teams. That's kind of most of my content is player analysis, or when I talk about teams, it's more so in the context of like Cam Johnson just joined the Nuggets. Let's break down Cam Johnson's game and how it fits with what the Nuggets do. It was nice to step back and just like cover entire teams. Obviously, it's hard to make short team videos, right? Like I have team videos on my channel from a couple years ago that are like 28 to 30 minutes long, because if you're really going to do heavy hitting analysis on a rotation of 12 to 15 players, and their system on both sides of the ball, it's tough to nail it down to just like 12 to 15 minutes. So I think the format I went with for that series actually ended up working out pretty well, where I was able to talk about all of the important pieces, talk about the potential rotation, talk about all of the moves each team made and whatnot, and then of course my predictions for each team. And my predictions for the most part have been decent. There's been a few teams I was off the mark on, like I don't know what's going on with the Clippers. I did not expect the Clippers to be a bottom 7 defense a month into the season. That was not on my bingo card. The one team that like I could have seen myself being wrong about was Dallas. I was higher on Dallas coming in, and they just haven't been good at all on offense. But then also, like, specifically Miami's half-court offense, I definitely underrated. I didn't expect them to revamp their system. Toronto, I think I could have given more credit to for how many good offensive players they have from a team standpoint. But for the most part, I feel pretty decent about where I'm at for each team. I think you should make game recaps like last season for interesting games. I've actually been considering that. I almost did one for Thunder Rockets on opening night. I was like starting it and then I didn't finish it. I did do not necessarily the same thing as the game recap. Obviously, that's a lot different. But recently, my Draymond and Wemby video was kind of game specific. It was breaking down 2 games, that matchup specifically. But I know what you're talking about. I've done like 25-minute long videos, just like the full back and forth, start to finish from both teams, and I haven't done that in a while. So yeah, that's definitely an idea moving forward if there are some really interesting games. I need to tweet out that I'm live, but it doesn't let me grab the link for some reason. It's kind of weird. Yeah, OKC's just casually going to get a top 5 pick after they win 70 games. Really normal stuff going on in Oklahoma City right now. Nothing weird at all. Now, if they win the championship and then get a top 5 pick, we got to have some crazy conversations. When will you glaze Maxey again? That's a crazy way of framing it. But I do have a folder of videos that I'm going to start working on, and I do have a Tyrese Maxey video in there, talking about his leap. Some Denny Avdia content. I did do a Denny video last year, when he kind of started to ascend. I don't know if I'll do another one just because I feel like right now Denny, to me, hasn't necessarily taken another leap in terms of like what he's doing differently. It's more so just an expansion upon what I already talked about in that video, and then just ramping up the volume now that he has more offensive responsibility with Scoot injured, and then, of course, Anthony Simons going to Boston. So I don't know if I'll do a Denny video, but if you haven't seen the one I already did, I did kind of break down like the start of the rise, and I actually did say he was a few minor tweaks. In that video, I said he's a couple minor tweaks away from getting to an all-star level. And right now he looks like an all-star. So definitely should check that out. Much respect. Love your insights. Keep going, bro. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you for the support. What's up, Denver? How you doing, man? See, Denver used to be the guy that I'd stream with. I when I was doing the playback streams during the playoffs. And then I just vanished off the face of the earth and never went live again. This is actually going to become a regular thing. I think I'm going to be on playback a little bit more when there's live games. Like, I think I might do a playback stream tonight for Rockets Nuggets, because that's a really big game, and I kind of want to watch that live. But these types of live streams where I just kind of open up the floor and talk about whatever's going on in the NBA, maybe a couple times a week, because I do think it's nice to get some unscripted content out there. Like, obviously my main thing is the long form videos, the written out videos, that are like more heavy hitting analysis, breaking down plays and whatnot. But it is nice to just have like an unfiltered space to just like get thoughts out there without having to write or organize a video. I really appreciate that, Miles. He got sick of me, chat. Yeah, I had to leave on Denver. I actually like gave up live streaming just to get away from Denver. That's what I had to do. I didn't have the heart to tell him. Sad seeing my all-time fave player like Harden drowning in LA. Any teams he makes sense for. I feel like James Harden makes sense for a lot of teams. Unfortunately, I think he's not going anywhere. I think he wants to stay in LA. I think he likes the organization with the Clippers. I just can't really see him going anywhere different. Even if there are teams he fits on, and he's been amazing, man. He's been actually amazing. James Harden's been a joy to watch this season. I've got him in fantasy, so I'm loving the James Harden experience. I don't know, if I were to think of like one specific team that would benefit the most from adding James Harden, maybe Orlando. I think Orlando's got to be mentioned in there. Dallas, obviously, with the defensive structure they've built and the play finishers they have. Those are probably the two off the dome. I mean, Houston, obviously, but they can't make that work with contracts. So, unless they got rid of Şengün or Durant, which would kind of defeat the purpose. I would say the main two for Harden that I would like, or Minnesota too. Yeah, Minnesota's a great shout, because they still need a point guard. But I think you got Minnesota. I already forgot what other teams I mentioned. Whatever team I mentioned. Now, when it would make the most sense to leave. Now, yeah, exactly. Now, when it would make the most sense to leave, he's going to stay put. No, 100%. Yeah, I think James Harden's going to. I don't know if I'll say he's going to retire a Clipper because I don't know what's going to happen years down the line, but I think for the foreseeable future, he's a Clipper. Thanks for starting the podcast talking about my Raptors. Of course, man. Raptors look great. I love this Raptors squad. Maybe sneakily like one of the best passing teams on the planet. Just crazy ball movement, tons of cutting. You think Sabonis could actually get moved? Oh, 100%. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be a great price for him. It's got to be a team that's just kind of like willing to take on the contract. But I was talking to a few guys, and I actually think my number one destination for Sabonis right now is Boston. And I know that kind of sounds crazy, but I'm thinking like when Tatum returns next year, they'll have an opportunity to kind of revamp their offense if they want to add someone like Sabonis as a hub in the middle of the floor. With the athleticism they have on the court, with the defensive covers they'll have, because they can actually trade for Sabonis and make the contracts work without getting rid of Derek White. So if you have Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, I do think Sabonis is like a very tenable playoff 5 for Boston. I haven't really looked into any other destinations though, but that's the one that I was really thinking about, where I was like, if there was a team that'd be willing to take a gamble on Sabonis, I think Boston would make sense from a basketball standpoint. Markkanen been the most talked about, but who would you like Detroit to go all in on? Dude, my guy for Detroit is Tyler Hero. And that might sound crazy or just like kind of out of left field, but I think the ideal running mate for Cade Cunningham is a high volume 3-point shooter who can also create off the catch or off the bounce, alleviate some of that pressure and make plays. And what better place to cover up for Tyler Hero's defense than like this big athletic team in Detroit that just like basically like Tyler Hero would fill the Duncan Robinson role in offense, but just expand upon it by being a much better ball handler and passer. And I do think Brandon Pajemski, I think the idea, like the Lowry, I'm high on Lowry Markkanen, and I'm actually going to do a Lowry video very soon because he's such a unique player. Such a nice off-ball scorer who can kind of fit anywhere. But the thing about Lowry or the Pistons in particular is that they need a second creator next to Cade. They need someone who can handle the ball, run legit on-ball action, and beat like heavy gap defense. And that's not who Lowry is. I don't think Jaden Ivey can fill Tyler Hero's role at all. Tyler Hero is like a 10 3-point attempt, 40% guy for multiple years now. He's just like a world-class 3-point shooter. That's not who Ivey is at all. And Ivey has turnover issues that Tyler Hero doesn't. So I do think next to Cade, I'd rather have the lower turnover, higher volume 3-point shooter. But shout out Danish Jenkins, man. What a hooper for Detroit this year. Do you think the Knicks need more passers? I don't necessarily think they need more passers. I kind of feel the same way I've always felt about the Knicks. It's just really hard to build a championship level defense with Brunson and Cat playing close to 40 minutes in the playoffs. And you kind of have to have perfect defensive coverage next to those guys. So the odd spot to me is still like that Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, who's going to play, who's going to close games, or Deuce McBride. I think that's the awkward spot. Like, I like McHale, OG, Brunson, and Cat as a foundation, but your fifth guy then has to be like Herb Jones, Tumani Kamara, one of the Thompson twins. You know what I mean? Actually, dude, imagine this Knicks team with Amen Thompson at the 2. Brunson, Amen Thompson, or Asar Thompson. Brunson, Thompson, McHale, OG, and Cat. That'd be filthy. That'd be a filthy squad on both sides of the ball. Is there a point guard you'd like to see Houston acquire to put them over the top? I haven't looked specifically at who's available or who they can make work with contracts. I don't know. I'll have to look into that, and maybe we'll do a live stream talking about Houston, because I do still think that in the playoffs they're gonna lack some volume 3-point shooting and some ball security. So, like, ironically, Fred VanVleet is the point guard that I'd like to see them acquire to put them over the top. But there's got to be someone else who can kind of replicate that skill set to a smaller degree. Peyton Pritchard actually would be my pick, probably. Yo, Denver, you got to stop with the Brandon Pajemski talk. I'd say Peyton Pritchard would be the point guard for Houston. I think that'd be a really good fit. What do you think about the Bulls being a 500 team every year? I'm a Bulls fan and it's pain. I live close to Chicago. Everyone around me is Bulls fans, so I feel your pain. I like their team. I think they can... I think there's a clear direction here. I like the identity they've built, dominating transition possessions, moving the ball, screening, cutting, lots of good passers. I just think it's about growing, and it's about finding that true number one piece moving forward. Because as much as I like Modest Buzelis, I think he's awesome. I don't think he's like a lead half-court creator on a championship team. I think he's more of that complementary piece who can just kind of fill in all the gaps. What's up, Isaac? I think you should make a video talking about a few rookies who were less talked about before the season, like Khan and Coward. Khan Knipple is on my list. I'm doing a Khan Knipple video very soon. And I agree. I like talking about rookies. That'll be a fun one for sure. Which players from the bottom feeding team so far do you think could make the biggest impact in the title picture? I think Herb Jones could change a team's life. Players from the bottom feeding teams. Let me look at the NBA standings real quick, because off the dome, yeah, Herb Jones is obviously a great shout. And obviously contracts play into this too. I'm not thinking about contracts. I mean, it's kind of tough. Like, the bottom feeding teams to me right now are all super young. No, I mean, there's a lot of guys on Memphis. Ty Jerome, Cedric Howard, but like a lot of those guys are probably going to stay in Memphis for a while. Sacramento's got a bunch of interesting guys, I guess. I don't know what to make of Sacramento. Like, I feel like they have some positive NBA players, like Keegan Murray. I think Keegan Murray's a great shout, but I think Sacramento's going to value him very highly. Utah's got a bunch of guys. Portland's got a bunch of guys. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but I think ideally it's more about archetypes, right? The thing about these archetypes that can enhance a championship level team is like big athletic so you can handle playoff physicality, reliable enough shooter to at least make defenses have to think about respecting you, and then just like pluggable skill sets that you can fit next to other high-end talent. So like, are you a good cutter? Can you finish plays at the rim? Can you play multiple roles on defense? Are you scheme versatile? So Herb Jones is an amazing shout as someone who's been a somewhat reliable corner 3-point shooter, really good passer, like sneaky good passer, great transition scorer, and then of course one of the best defensive wings on the planet. Any team would be really lucky to add someone like that. Do you think D Fox needs to be more aggressive with Wemby? Not necessarily. I think the balance is pretty good. I think it's still just a growing period. Fox and Wemby have only played like 10 games together, right? Since last year. So I do think it's more about just growing together and figuring out that fit as opposed to Fox needing to be more aggressive. Have you looked at the 26 draft at all? And then someone else asked if the draft is stacked. Yeah, MPJ's been hooping. I don't do draft coverage, so I'm not super in tune with prospects. But I do have a general idea of players coming in. And the one thing I can say is just like the prospect pool seems so stacked. I know obviously the big talking points are the top 3 guys who are like all number 1 picks in a normal year. But to me, it's also about just like NBA players deep in the draft. Like this seems like a draft that's not only top heavy, but it's going to have NBA players spread out all across the board. Like I said, I don't do draft coverage, so I'm not going to know too much even in the draft cycle, but I talk to a lot of draft guys, and that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Yeah, Bilal Coulibaly's a good shout. Very versatile wing defender, can protect the rim, play on or off the ball. Really good interior finisher and cutter. The thing with Bilal is just like, how much can he reliably add as a ball handler for a contender? Like, and as a shooter too, because I don't think teams respect him in the playoffs. Luka's shooting and driving numbers are at career lows. I think the rim pressure leaves a little bit to be desired. I actually think like the first 2 games of this season with Luka were amazing. The first 2 games were amazing. With the driving balance, getting to the line, using the mid-range, and then leveraging the pull-up 3-point threat, of course. Since the foot injury, it's been like a mix of good and bad, right? Like obviously not good and bad performance from Luka. I'm specifically talking about the balance between the driving and the shooting, because Luka has set such a high floor between his shot making, game management, and passing. There's such a high floor for a Luka performance that he's just always going to deliver, basically. But I do think at his best, Luka is getting to the rim more than he is right now and not relying on the pull-up 3 quite as much. But to his credit, the shooting luck has been down. So once that gets back to the mean, absolutely, Luka looks incredible. And also, this has been Luka's best defensive season, in my opinion. He's just moving a lot better. Sabonis is playing poorly, mostly because I know he's been dealing with some injuries. Also, Sacramento's roster just sucks, and Sabonis is at his best when he's playing with other high-end talent. He's the kind of guy that just enables other guys and gets enabled by high-end talent. But also, Sacramento went away from the Sabonis offense. They went away from using Sabonis as their primary ball handler in the half court and their primary offensive or source of offense, I should say, as a playmaking hub. And his assist numbers are way down. His scoring numbers are way down because he's not a focal point. He's playing more of a specialized role now. Josh Giddey video, I haven't put that on my list, but I've been considering it because I do kind of want to talk about Josh Giddey. I haven't made a video on Josh Giddey since 2022, I think. I wouldn't say anyone can develop Giannis level mastery because Giannis is obviously just like an outlier. But I do think Cooper Flagg has like very much been on a constant upswing. Jalen Duren video, that's a good shout. I actually might just do a video on the Pistons altogether. Cade video for sure is in the works. What archetype of guard would be best next to Devin Booker? I think it'd be a rim pressure heavy playmaker. So like, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. I think this is going to sound crazy, but like 2022 Ja Morant, I think is like the ideal guard you could have next to Devin Booker. Maybe someone with a little bit more off-ball versatility. Tyrese Maxey's a good shout, but I would say you probably want a better passer. Maybe like a Darius Garland. He's not a rim pressure guy, but he can get into the defense at least with his handle. Just someone who's going to apply downhill pressure, put the defense in rotation, and be like a legitimate lead passer. Halliburton is the ideal guard to play with literally anyone. Halliburton's such an amazing player. I think he's so underrated. Still, even now that Indiana's collapsed and everyone's waking up, Tyrese Halliburton is absolutely phenomenal. And 9 times out of 10, if you ask who the ideal point guard fit is next to a player, it's Tyrese Halliburton. Okay. On that note, I love opening the room for questions. I'll do a live stream soon where I literally just do like Q&A. We'll do like a mailbox. Is that what it's called? Mailbag episode? I think it's mailbag. Like a mailbag episode where I just do like questions like this and we'll do like an hour or two. But I want to talk about LaMelo Ball because yesterday, a report came out that basically LaMelo and the front office aren't on great terms and he is tired of losing. I don't really know exactly what is real and what's fake and what's clickbait and whatnot, but the general gist is Now LaMelo's in trade talks quite a bit. And I think LaMelo's such an interesting player to talk about because I think he might be the single most controversial player in the NBA. Where on one side of the token, you have those who think he plays an unserious brand of basketball, inefficient, limited athlete, bad defensive player, all these things, and just like overall not a winning player. Just someone that like is fun. He's gonna sell tickets. He does a lot of cool things. I know LaMelo said it was fake, but I feel like that happens a lot. I feel like a lot of times like leaks come out and then players don't want the bad optics. So, but all that's to say, even if it is fake, there is some writing on the wall potentially. I do think this is year 5 or 6 now for LaMelo, and they've had one winning season, generally like a 20 win percentage team. And it might not even be up to LaMelo. Maybe the Hornets see that they've hit in the draft with 3 picks in the last draft that are just absolute huge wins. And maybe they're like, okay, we're going to go with this direction instead of the LaMelo direction. Either way, I just want to talk about LaMelo, even if he's not going to get traded at all, because it's such an interesting topic. Like I said, on one token, you have those who think he's just a losing player, fun, going to sell tickets, make highlight plays, but doesn't really impact the game. I think LaMelo has like a very niche skill set that can enhance winning basketball at a really high level. Even if there are limitations in his game, which we'll talk about, LaMelo obviously has like some shot selection concerns. But again, how much of that is born out of necessity playing on a Charlotte team that historically hasn't had any offensive options? You know, it's like last season they were still playing Taj Gibson minutes in 2025, and Mark Williams was in and out of the lineup, and he was LaMelo's second option. Miles Bridges, at best, is like a semi-inefficient 20-point-per-game scorer who can't really create much off the bounce from a standstill. So it's like LaMelo gets thrown into the fire with these lineups, and his best skill is his ability to enhance the guys around him with his passing, with his quickness to get off the ball, with his ability to push the pace. So if you don't surround him with those types of guys that can play off of that skill set, then he's going to have to settle for tough shots. That's kind of my idea. And there are limitations with LaMelo scoring. Like I said, doesn't have a ton of burst, not super strong, not great use of pace coming off of the screens. He kind of struggles with like generic point guard reads because he kind of plays at one speed at times. But with that, really good ball handler, really good touch on like floaters and things like that. It improved his rim scoring and free throw rates. And then, of course, just a crazy good pull-up three-point shooter. So there is still scoring punch with LaMelo. But to me, that's secondary to everything else he offers. I think LaMelo is a really interesting player. So I'm gonna pull up. I got some things I want to pull up real quick. Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, there we go. The Hornets. Just to like add some context, and this is why I say the writing might be on the wall. Hornets in LaMelo's career, spanning from 2021 to 2026, you got 33 wins as a rookie in a shortened season. So granted, that's maybe like 37 wins in a full season. They have one winning season in 2022 where they lose in the play-in. And they actually had a pretty strong offense that year, +2 relative offensive rating. 43 wins. Then you're right back to 27 wins, 21 wins, 19 wins, and right now 4-11. In LaMelo's career, they've never had even a league average defense. And I do think it is worth noting, like, LaMelo isn't exactly the type of player who's going to add to the defense, actually probably takes away from it. I do think he struggles defending at the point of attack. He's very weak physically. He's like this. He might be the skinniest player in the league, so can't really defend up against wings. So he's kind of like a guy you have to hide. I will say he uses his length pretty well in lanes, playing gaps, picks up a decent amount of deflections. So on a run and gun type of offense in Charlotte, his ability to kind of force turnovers and force the offense to play faster with his turnover generation, that does help. But generally, a clear minus defender. And some of the stats we'll look at will tell you that he's just a clear minus defender. But yeah, all that's to say, the Hornets suck, but at least they're very clearly better when LaMelo's in the lineup. Like, this is a big difference, man. A 26.9% win percentage without LaMelo and a 42 win percentage with LaMelo. So we're talking the difference between what? A 17 win team, 16 win team without LaMelo, and maybe a 35 win team with LaMelo, adding like 20 wins to the Charlotte team when he's in and out of the lineup. And the thing that needs to be noted, that's really important to note when we talk about these players and talking about trade targets and things like that, is it is significantly more valuable to make a good team great than it is to make a bad team less bad. And I feel like sometimes we work backwards. We look at like a guy like LaMelo, for example, and say, oh, he adds 20 wins to this bad team, so you put him on a 40-win team and he can make them a 60-win team. When that just isn't how basketball works, and that's why a guy like Draymond, in his specialized skill set, is such a uniquely dominant force historically, where it's like if you put him on this Warriors team that would win 56 games without him, you add him, and now they're a 68-win team. There are very few players in NBA history who can take a team that's already a contender and make them the championship team. And so the question with LaMelo that we need to ask and answer is this effect on his team replicable on a better team? Can he take a good team, make them great? Can he take a great team, make them better? Can he take a fringe playoff team and make them a serious like playoff threat? Obviously we don't have the answer because we've never seen LaMelo in that type of situation, but I do think there are some things he does on the court and some signals that suggest he's capable of doing it. So I actually want to pull up some clips here. And these are like completely out of order clips. I was just going through different LaMelo plays and kind of just like picked things that I wanted to talk about in his skill set that enhance a good team. First thing, and this one's kind of obvious, transition playmaking. What's up, Kadeem? How you doing, man? Transition playmaking is something that translates so well to playoff basketball because there seems to be this idea that the game slows down in the playoffs, right? And it does to some extent. I think you'll see like 3 less possessions a game or 4 less possessions a game, but it's not to the point where transition creation becomes moot. And if you can actually still get it off in the playoffs, it becomes that much more valuable because every other offense is slowing down. So look at the Pacers, for example, last year. Everyone expected their offense, well, I don't want to say everyone, but a lot of people expected their offense to not hold up as well as it did because the game slows down. But what we saw is that you can't slow down the Pacers. So when all of these other teams are starting to slow down and they just stay right where they're at, now they're getting an extra 10 transition possessions over their opponent, and transition offense is just simply the most efficient form of offense in basketball. So if you can just continuously create transition possessions out of thin air and then like make those possessions efficient for your team, you just have a huge advantage on teams in the playoffs. And I think that's something LaMelo does extremely well. He's genuinely just like straight up one of the best transition players in the league. And he has the entire package. The size, the vision, the ability to get downhill and pressure defenses as a scorer himself, but then also just ridiculous vision, like the passing, man. Like look at this, just quick kick aheads. Recognizes every advantage. It is very Halliburton-esque with the way he sees things before they happening ahead of him and the willingness to get off the ball quick. But then even on half-court possessions like this, everything's quick. Like everything's instant, quick action, get downhill, don't let the defense get set. And I just think that's such a big advantage. I think any team, even ones that already have good transition offense, can add someone like LaMelo and just like a super advantageous player who, if you get him going down court with head of steam and the defense isn't perfectly set, just going to get the best possession pretty much every time, whether that's as a passer or right here, as you see, as a scorer. Because he's got that touch from floater range. If LaMelo can mature his offense, he's better than Magic. That's a take. I'm going to disagree. I think Magic Johnson's like a top 5 offensive player of all time. But I get where you're coming from in terms of like the play style and the ability to burn defenses as an outside shooter in a way Magic could. LaMelo in that Heat offense would be beautiful. I totally agree. And we'll talk about destinations because I totally agree. Feel like he could truly unlock someone like Ant in his off-ball game. 100% agree with that as well. But also the other underrated aspect with LaMelo that I think a lot of people miss is LaMelo's a really good off-ball player. Because of Charlotte's situation, not having another ball handler next to him basically any year besides like some Terry Rozier moments. He's had to be like a heliocentric type of offensive player, but that's not what he is at all. He's not this dominant isolation spread pick and roll guy. He's actually oftentimes at his best in the half court without the ball. And that's a function of smart movement, high feel, and of course, really reliable three-point shooting. Just a great wide open three-point shooter. But like, to me, what stands out is the fact that he basically never pounds the ball into the floor, right? Like you see those possessions where he gets a mismatch, starts to play in isolation, and will go to like some crazy street ball combo and get off a one-legged step back three or whatever. But for the most part, he's very much like quick to get off the ball as soon as he recognizes an advantage. Again, very Halliburton-esque. As soon as there's an advantage, he's picking up the ball and getting it to the right spot. And he can make every pass. He's an incredibly good passer. So quick to get off the ball, and his shooting threat creates advantages. Like when he comes off a screen, you have to react and just like, yeah, the quickness to recognize any mismatch, any advantage. And then with the off-ball play, you can just use him in a variety of ways. Here they go to Chicago action, screen into a handoff, and that's just a beautiful read. Beautiful read. He doesn't need to dominate the ball, right? Like you can just use him in so many ways. This time they go to like a little drag screen type thing. He gets a switch, and this is when he's going to pound the ball into the floor, but he's someone who can consistently attack mismatches and beat them in a variety of ways. So those are just good isolation possessions. Again, the point I'm trying to get at, very Halliburton-esque. Does this not look like Indiana? You go to like a little drag screen set, get the switch. It reminds me of the Knicks series where Halliburton was just picking on Cat or Mitchell Robinson on switches, and he's got just enough of an isolation bag to attack those mismatches consistently and apply pressure. Just a really smart basketball player, man. I don't ever understand the takes with the unserious basketball because he does so many things that just enhance all of the guys around him. And yeah, I just think he's a really valuable player. Just the way, the quickness with which he processes the floor, recognizes advantages, gets off the ball. Look at this. Look at the anticipation here. I actually want to see if I can back up just a touch. He comes off a handoff. Knipple, is that Knipple? Yeah, Knipple sets a back screen for Miles Bridges. And Knipple's actually getting ready to curl off this cross screen to come get the ball. But Wiggins is starting to chase. So LaMelo recognizes early that Miles Bridges is diving down the lane. And the placement on all these passes is just perfect. Really good anticipation. Really good vision. Elite passing bag. I actually think LaMelo is like a top 7 passer on the planet. If I were doing no order, best passers on the planet, break it down into tiers, I'd say tier 1 is Luka, Jokic, and Halliburton. We'll take Halliburton out, though, because he's obviously not playing this season. How you doing, Mubsy, man? It's been a while. How you doing, man? Next tier of passers, I think you got, like, Cade, Trey, LeBron, and LaMelo. LaMelo, to me, is in that class of passer. He's just a ridiculously good passer. And like I said, see, these are the types of possessions that really stand out to me. The ability to function, 100%. The potential assists, because Charlotte's offensive system in the past few years and their lack of weapons has definitely like suffered from a lack of play finishing talent and guys who are going to miss shots when he creates good opportunities. And unlike John Trey, feel like he has every passing window because of his size. Absolutely, that's something that Cade has to his advantage as well. Can see over the defense, has the length to get the ball over or around different types of length. Really, really, really fun passer. Love to see LaMelo with a consistent lob threat. Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be really fun. But like, these are the possessions I'm talking about when I say LaMelo can obviously function in a high-level team offense. Look at how many quick reads he makes in the snap of the second. I shouldn't say the snap of the second, but you know what I mean. So they're going to go to another Chicago-type action where he comes off a cross screen into an immediate handoff. Wendell has to jump out because LaMelo is an elite three-point shooter. Immediately gets off the ball. Then Franz and Wendell both fall asleep, so he immediately becomes open, flyby, gets an open three. In a span of like 5 seconds, you get shooting gravity, creates a 4-on-3 advantage. You get a relocate for a catch and shoot threat, fly by, you get a wide open three. I think I have another possession where it's like just making, yeah, look at this one. This is actually my favorite LaMelo possession of the entire season. And this again shows how he can function on a high level team offense. So the offense is forced into an awkward spot where they have to reset. LaMelo gets the ball on the perimeter. A lot of guards here, think Trae Young, they set up a pick and roll. They've got the spread pick and roll set up, right? 2 shooters in the corner, a shooter on the wing. You've got the big right here, 13 seconds. Let's go to our spread pick and roll. LaMelo isn't wired to think like that. Instead, kick, I'm going to screen, I'm going to slip, switches late, catch the ball in the short roll, immediate kick out. That's just high-level team basketball for LaMelo. Like, all that's to say, LaMelo is just a high-level team player. A lot of things he does on the court enhance all 5 guys in the court. Quick to get off the ball. Great at pushing the pace. Utilizes his own scoring threat really well to free up the guys around him. And I think that's kind of the part of LaMelo's game that really gets overlooked. It's not just about the 25 points and 8 assists or whatever he's putting up on the box score. It's about the way he involves all 5 guys in the offense, the way he combines elite open floor playmaking with versatile passing and elite outside shooting to just like pressure the defense throughout the course of a game in so many different ways. And when you talk about a championship level offense, look at OKC, look at Indiana, look at Boston a couple of years ago. More times than not, look at Denver. More times than not, you got to be able to play fast. You got to be able to move the ball. And you got to have those guys who can just impact the game in a bunch of different ways. And I think that's the selling point with LaMelo when it comes to what he can do for a playoff team. So, all that's to say, there are a few statistical signals with LaMelo that I think really stand out. Shout out to Play-by-Play Stats. If you're not familiar with playbyplaystats.com, this is where I get most of my stats. This is my favorite basketball website. They have literally everything you could possibly look for. What I'm looking for right now is on-off team stats, all stats for one player. We're going to go to the last 5 seasons. So since LaMelo's sophomore season, let me see if I could find LaMelo Ball here. Lots of players. Okay. So we've got the last 5 seasons. This is going to show us basically every major stat for the Hornets over the last 5 seasons when LaMelo's on the court and when LaMelo's off the court. He's missed a ton of time, so we're working with a huge sample size here, like hundreds of games worth of minutes just simply with LaMelo on the bench. So this is a very reliable signal. And obviously there's more that goes into on-off stuff like lineup choices, the team around him. But to me, there's a very, very consistent signal with LaMelo's game that I think is just really, really important. So obviously the first major stat that everyone's going to look at for an offensive player, offensive rating on and off the court. With LaMelo, we're looking at a guy, 115.5 offensive rating on the court. That would rank 14th. So if we were to do the last 5 seasons, LaMelo on the court, the Hornets would be producing at about the 14th best offense in the league. With him off the court, 107.8, which is actually last by over 2 points. So just far and away the worst offensive team in basketball with LaMelo off the court, and then about a league average offense with LaMelo on the court. I think that checks out, but think about these offensive rosters. So for LaMelo to be able to produce even league average offense with their cast of characters shows his impact on the offense. How you doing, NJ Don? What do you think of Ja to Minnesota? I think that's a decent fit, but this version of Ja I'm not really liking, so I'm kind of wait and see. It could just be a quiet protest, but like an idealized version of Ja, I do think fits Minnesota pretty well. Another thing, are you going to start tonight against the Rockets? Stream, I think you mean? I think I might. Oh, you're calling me Christian Brown. Okay. I don't know if I'm starting, man. I appreciate you, Emmanuel. Thanks for the support, man. That means a lot. Yes, I might be starting against the Rockets tonight. We'll see. I thought you were asking if I was going to stream the game against the Rockets, but I see where you're going. The other, I should say, Another key stat with LaMelo and his impact on the Hornets. Assists per 100 possessions. So how many shots are being assisted on for the Hornets? And this is where I think he really separates himself from a heliocentric offensive player. So with LaMelo on the court, 27.4 assists per 100, that would rank 6th. So the 6th best assist team in basketball with LaMelo on the court. With him off the court, 24.9 assists, which would rank 25th. So again, we're talking about an elite ball movement team assisting on a lot of shots with LaMelo on the court, and then a team that doesn't really assist on any shots with LaMelo off the court. And that's the big signal, like I said, that to me really separates him from these other on-ball creators. Because actually, if you look at the last 5 seasons, the Hawks average less assists with Trae on the court, and that's because the ball's being stopped a lot more. It's in his hands a lot more as an on-ball creator. And most of their possessions end with him assisting a shot or him creating a shot for himself, not ball moving around, swing, 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 you get an assisted shot. Same thing with Luka. Over the last 6 seasons, Luka's teams have averaged less assists with him on the court. And that's the same thing. Ball's in Luka's hands. It's either him assisting or him creating a shot for himself for the most part. Whereas LaMelo, quick to get off the ball, quick to enhance those swinging possessions. So when you talk about who LaMelo is as a player and the kind of signal he has for his impact on the team, I think it's very Tyrese Halliburton-esque. And I have 2 more, or actually I should say 3 more, very major stats that are just extremely Tyrese Halliburton-esque in terms of his impact on the team. First one, turnovers. His turnover impact on the team is absolutely insane. So take everything, throw everything you think about LaMelo's decision-making and turnovers out the window, and just think about the impact on the team. With LaMelo on the court, the Hornets rank 8th in turnovers. 8th best, like 8th lowest. With him off the court, they rank 24th. So again, a guy who's turning a team that would typically turn the ball over at a near-league worst rate, makes them take care of the ball at a near-league best rate. Another huge Tyrese Halliburton-esque stat. Seconds per possession on offense. So basically offensive pace. How quick is your offensive possession before you get a shot off? With LaMelo on the court, the Hornets have been the fastest team in basketball. 14 seconds per possession. They are number 1 in pace with LaMelo on the court. With him off the court, they are 26th. 26th in pace. So LaMelo over the last 5 seasons has been the difference between the fastest team in basketball and the 5th slowest, I should say, team in basketball. One more stat I want to throw at you that really highlights a way LaMelo impacts the game is the corner 3-point frequency of the entire team. We got that right here. When LaMelo's on the court, 12% of Charlotte's shots are corner threes. When he's off the court, 9.5%. That's the difference between 3rd and 25th. 3rd and 25th. So LaMelo is just a really interesting player in terms of like his signal on the game. He's a guy who over the last 5 seasons has taken a team that would basically just be the worst offense in close to every category. And it's like, okay, with LaMelo on the court, we're elite in transition. We get tons of corner threes. We don't turn the ball over, and we assist on every shot. I think that is the type of player who really just like enhances a team that's trying to win games, right? If you put that on a team that already has a reliable half-court isolation creator, so LaMelo isn't expected to score 25 points a game. It's just the type of skill set, the type of impact on the team that is going to upgrade a playoff roster. And we already looked at the film, right? A guy who's quick to get off the ball, quick to push the pace, recognizes advantages always, can handle the ball, create his own shot, play with or without the ball, and just like do a ton of things on offense to enhance the team. And that really stands out when you look at something like offensive on-off. Every year, since LaMelo's sophomore year, every single year, the Hornets have had an above-average offense with LaMelo on the court. In 2022, they were 4 points above average. 2023, half a point above average. 2024, a point above average. 2025, 2 points. And this year, they've actually just been like straight up an elite offense with LaMelo in the court, but obviously a really small sample. And then, of course, the on-off impact is there because, like we just talked about, they're an awful offense when he's off the court. The thing with LaMelo is the defense, right? What do we make of his defense? I think he's clearly a negative defender. So when we're talking about like potential trade destinations and potential like high-level impact spots, it's got to be somewhere that can cover for him defensively. And that's just kind of a given. But I do think it's worth noting his defense probably looks worse on a team that's always been a below average defense. Like I said earlier, Charlotte's never had an above average defense with LaMelo or even an average defense with LaMelo. So if you put him on a team that's already an established and proven defense, I do think you can kind of see maybe not a similar thing to what you see from Halliburton, because Halliburton was just a legitimately like decent defender in the playoffs last year. But it's like big, lengthy, somewhat mobile, decent hands. If you put him on a team with a ton of defensive coverage, I do think LaMelo is the type of guy who can at least be a passable negative, not this team-altering, drastic presence where it's like we can't even build a good playoff defense because this guy exists. Another shout out to databallr.com. Another awesome website where you can do a ton of stuff with statistics. One guy I want to pull up is LaMelo's, just like another kind of on-off stat if we do a 3-point luck adjustment and we make it a 5-year sample like I've been doing. Because I do think LaMelo's improved in recent years, but 5 years is a really good sample for these types of numbers because we see so many different lineup permutations, so many different teammates in and out. Like, look at this, 8,800 minutes they've played without LaMelo. And we'll talk about the injury stuff in a second because that obviously is a huge talking point. But again, the signal of a positive player. With the luck adjustment, their defense has actually been better with LaMelo on the court, but take that with a grain of salt. I don't think he's a positive defender. But 4.5 points better on offense, 5.5 points better overall. Actually close to an average team with LaMelo on the court. Worst team in basketball with LaMelo off the court. Nothing we haven't already seen. Also, shout out to Thinking Basketball. Also a great website, and I'm sure everyone's familiar with Thinking Basketball, the channel. I generally agree. There are things that LaMelo does that make it hard to build a good defense, but I also think Charlotte just doesn't have any good defenders. Like, I think Miles Bridges has been just as drastically negative to the defense as LaMelo has, if not more. Same with Trey Mann. Same with the fact that they're playing Taj Gibson starter level minutes in half of these seasons. So I do think some of it is, yes, LaMelo's a weak defender, but I do think it's also LaMelo has never been surrounded with good defenders. So how much can we really expect him? Because obviously as a negative defender, you're not going to be the type of guy that swings a bad defense into a good one. You're just going to make it worse. So I do think if you put him on a team that has 4 good defenders or 3 good defenders, can switch, can do a lot of things with the scheme versatility, LaMelo, to me, is a guy who can at least function in that environment because of his size, length, and he has shown some level of buy-in. Whenever the Hornets have been semi-competitive or late in games, he has shown buy-in, and I do think that gets overlooked with LaMelo. I think everyone kind of views him as this unserious defensive player who doesn't care, but I don't agree with that. I do think he's been a guy, historically, who when the stakes are higher, has been bought in defensively. This snapshot right here basically perfectly captures who LaMelo is as a player. High scoring volume, low efficiency. And if we're going to get LaMelo on a championship level team or even just a playoff level team, the efficiency has to be better. It just straight up has to be better. You can't have this -5, -4 relative true shooting guy. The shot selection just has to be better. But the one thing I will say about LaMelo is the fact that, like, on the ideal team, he's your second or third scorer. And a lot of his shots are just like open threes, which, again, in this snapshot, last 3 seasons, 40% on wide open threes. So really important to make note of. If you get him open threes, he's going to hit them at a really high clip. But also this snapshot captures his superpower. his creation and passing. 97th percentile box creation, 99th percentile passer rating. The impact stuff looks really good offensively. They've got a 122 offensive rating with him on the court. Forces a lot of turnovers, like I said, but other defensive signals, not exactly great. Not this like the inside the arc scoring is what generally leaves the most to be desired on offense. Low true shooting percentage on drives. Doesn't get to the rim a ton. Doesn't finish super well. And not really much of a mid-range scorer. And that's kind of like, he's a very jump shot reliant, 3-point reliant creator and scorer. So you need those guys around him who are going to put pressure on the paint. Great at getting downhill as a playmaker, but not a big enough threat there. Yeah, generally. And like I said earlier, only plays at one pace when he comes off of screens or when he beats a guy in isolation. So it is kind of limited. But that's where I was going with that. The ideal situation for LaMelo, you have to have a go-to reliable half-court creator who can like create their own shot and reach pressure points within the defense. And then LaMelo would be the off guy, like the off guard, who can play off of that guy, extend advantages as a connector, be used as a screener or off of screens, as a shooter, as a playmaker, and just do all of the complementary stuff. Then you get like the LaMelo Ball with the bench unit when he starts running more pick and roll, starts playing more in isolation, all that stuff. Now let's get to the questionable side with LaMelo Ball, which, two things. One, injuries. 47 games last year, 22 games a few years ago, 36 games a few years ago. Only one season where he plays basically a full season, and that's the season that the Hornets won 43 games. So just goes to show when LaMelo's there, healthy, good things can happen. So any team willing to trade for LaMelo has to be willing to take a gamble. You have to be like, look, I understand the injury risk is there. For the right price, we think we can get enough games out of LaMelo, get him healthy in the playoffs. And some of this too, like, I don't exactly remember what all of the injuries have been, but I do think some of them have been, if I'm not wrong. Like, we're already one of the worst teams in basketball. We're not going to risk LaMelo, so we're just going to bench him for the rest of the season. I do think there's some of that going on, but obviously you need to see more games from LaMelo. And the reason that's such a problem is because he has a huge contract. $38 million this year, $41 million next year. By 2029, he'll be making $46 million a year. And that's such a gamble to take on somebody who you don't even know if he's going to be on the court. My kind of like overarching analysis for all of this is LaMelo. I think with LaMelo, you have to be willing to take a gamble with the contract, with the injury history. But when he's on the court, when LaMelo's on the court, really good transition passer, gonna speed up your offense no matter what. Really good off-ball offensive player who can enhance other on-ball guys. Really good shooter, really good passer. So he does things within the function of a team offense that can really like elevate a team to that championship level. And you have to be able to cover for him defensively. So any team that needs an offensive upgrade at the point guard position has that half-court scoring presence to cover for him, his limitations, I should say. And that's basically the gist of LaMelo's game. So, does anyone agree or disagree with what I'm saying, or have any big-time destinations they think would be like a great fit for LaMelo, I should say? Teams that make sense: Blazers, Wolves, Orlando, Hawks, and Wolves. No, you're good, NJ Don. You're good, man. That's something Utah would probably do, but I don't see what they'd give up. I do think the Utah variable gets really interesting because of Keontae George, right? Like, Keontae George's taking his leap this season, and like if he sustains that, it kind of changes their point guard outlook for the future. How you feeling today? I'm feeling great, man. Pretty tired because I hooped last night, and anytime like the day after hoops, my body's just gone. Miami, yeah, Miami's a good destination. I am going to cover destinations that I think are a great fit. And then we'll do some trade machine stuff too. Because I do think trying to make it work with the contracts gets really interesting. Orlando's a no-brainer. I agree. I love the Orlando fit. I do think, yeah, the contract makes things super tough. And the injury things makes it super tough. I think he's a winning player. See, that's my disagreement. I think LaMelo on the court is a winning player. I think the thing that makes him not a winning player is the injuries. Kyrie's a great fit everywhere. Like, imagine Kyrie with this current Atlanta team. Yes, I agree, Miles. I agree. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I think LaMelo is somewhat of a hybrid because, like, with those guys like Steph, Jokic, Halliburton, you get super efficient scoring. With LaMelo, it's not as efficient. The scoring isn't as efficient because he just isn't that level of 2-point scorer and doesn't have that level of touch from any level. And of course, the shot selection differences. But in terms of like I do think LaMelo is at his best as a connective piece next to other high-end talent, as opposed to a one-man offense in the way that Luka, Harden, or Trey are. I do think he's a very weak defensive player, yes, but I think he's a winning player on offense, and I think the offense, for the most part, outweighs the defensive issues if you can surround him with competent defensive structure. Let's talk about, do you think LaMelo would be better on a team with a guard or a big man? Kind of like the Wolves or the Heat? Well, I think LaMelo would be at his best with both. I think you obviously want a great big man to like weaponize the lob threat and things like that, and have a rim runner who's going to open up the corner skip pass and run the floor in transition and things like that. But I do think you need that go-to half-court scorer to cover for what LaMelo lacks as an inside-the-arc creator, like an Anthony Edwards or like a Jason Tatum at the guard or the wing spot. That's fair. No, that's fair. I do think LaMelo has flashes as a defender. What do you think about the inefficiency and shot selection for LaMelo? I think it's a mix of limitations in his game, and just like bad shot selection, but then also a mix of necessity because of the situation he's been in for his entire career. And I do think he's the type of guy. Like, let me put it this way, and maybe this is a bad comparison because I do think Halliburton's just on another level of player. But what would his scoring production look like if he was on a team that basically had no weapons and he had to be a 25 point per game scorer for them to put up points on the board? Like, Halliburton has a lot of the same limitations as an on-ball scorer, as an inside-the-arc scorer. And I don't think LaMelo is that level of processor or even that level of shooter. Like, Halliburton's shooting is just on another planet. But I do think you have similar strengths and weaknesses to the point where, like, an idealized roster around LaMelo probably looks close to what the Pacers have. And like a Siakam type next to LaMelo would be beautiful basketball. For me, I came up with a list of like 15 teams in each like the East and the Western Conference, potential destinations, and I haven't opened up the trade machine yet. So this is going to be completely like raw. Like, I'm just going to bust open the trade machine for teams that I think are a good fit, and we're going to see if we can even make something work. Do you think LaMelo could be a poor man's Luka in the right circumstances with a good big? I don't think he can be Luka. And it's just, Luka is amazing at using pace, and LaMelo struggles slowing down. And that's the big difference. So when you get into these spread pick and roll setups where it's like, I'm going to read the low man and manipulate the defense, LaMelo doesn't have that in his arsenal. I don't think he has that in his arsenal. And that's a very specialized skill set. Yeah, Luka's just different. But let's open up the trade machine. The first team I've got on my list is the Atlanta Hawks. It's the Atlanta Hawks. I'm just saying as like a prototype of a player. I think the prototype for LaMelo should be like Halliburton. Or even if you want to go to another level, Steve Nash. But obviously Steve Nash is just like the perfect offensive player, so it's a little bit different. So with the Hawks, it's as simple as this for me. And this is gonna be crazy for Hawks fans, and I don't think they go in this direction. I don't even know if I would go in this direction, but seeing the way the Hawks have played in these last few weeks without Trae Young, the length and defense, the transition play, the ball movement, they're actually, I think they're first in assists since Trae got injured. And they have this like really well-oiled movement-heavy offense with all of these defensive pieces. I think this would just be a straight up Trae for LaMelo swap. And that's the way to make the money work. That's the way to make everything work. And it would just be basically like Atlanta moving on from Trae Young. And choosing LaMelo. And I do think Trae Young's a way more valuable asset than LaMelo because he's so much more reliable with health. So you can probably add more to the mix. Like, I don't know who it would be. Like, would it be Colin Sexton also going to Atlanta? And then you have to make the contracts work again. So you add like, I don't even know who you would add. Oh, this trade actually works. So let's say this is the framework. Let's say this is the framework. LaMelo and Sexton for Trae Young. What's a temperature check on this? Hornets probably have to give up some picks. I'm not going to get into the picks. Hornets definitely would have to give up some picks. But this would make Atlanta starting five, what? LaMelo, Dyson, Risa Shea, Jalen Johnson, Porzingis. And then off the bench, you've still got Sexton, Alexander Walker, Vit Krejci, Keaton Wallace, Okongwu, Asa Newell. I think it works. I don't think Atlanta would do this. I don't think I'd personally do this if I was Atlanta. But I do think the framework is there if they wanted to go in that direction. Feels like LaMelo is what the Hawks have wanted Trae to be. To some extent, yeah, there are aspects of LaMelo's game that would definitely enhance the rest of the roster in a way that Trae hasn't been able to. But I also think in the playoffs, they're going to need that, like this is one team that doesn't have that half-court guy. So Trae is that guy. LaMelo's not. So when you get deep into a playoff series, you probably need Trae's ability to operate and spread pick and roll and pick apart defenses in the half-court. You can get any player off the Kings for him. Yeah, dude. No, I mean, you're probably not wrong. Same with the Pelicans. Like, this has Pelicans and Kings written all over it. Yeah, LaMelo and the Hawks would be the transition offense, the best transition offense in the league. Pretty comfortably. My next team, again, kind of a hot take, kind of out of left field. Boston. I don't even know if you can make the contracts work. I think it would have to be Derek White. This is one that I wouldn't do. I just straight up wouldn't do it. I mean, I guess if you can keep Derek White, what do you go? Anthony Simons and Sam Hauser. I guess this would be if LaMelo's getting shopped and there's no market for him because of the injury history and because of the contract. First apron team cannot take more salary than it's giving out. So we just got to add somebody else. Let's go Shireman. Does this work? This should work, right? Yeah. Obviously there'd have to be a bunch of picks from the Celtics side. Maybe you'd have to include Pritchard, which would kind of be tough. But I think if Boston was able to get LaMelo Ball while keeping Brown, White, and Tatum, that would work like really well. You have two go-to half-court scorers in Jalen and Jason. You have tons of defensive coverage, length, and switchability around him. You have a proven offensive and defensive system that works and that LaMelo can easily plug into as a three-point shooter, off-ball player, playmaker, transition offensive engine. To me, this one makes a lot of sense. Let me get a temperature check in the chat. Hornets probably don't accept this. Just saying. But from a basketball standpoint, I think this makes sense. Just watched Raptors versus Hornets. They would probably win a championship with that lineup. I think it would depend on who the five is, right? Like, you still got to... I don't think Keita, long-term, is your playoff five. Tatum would have to play the four, yeah, for sure, in most of these lineups. They're not doing that. Yeah, I don't think they do this either. I don't think they do this either. I guess it would just have to be like if there was no market for him and he forced his way out type thing, which I don't think is going to happen. But this is like worst case scenario, DEFCON. Charlotte has to get rid of LaMelo at the first buyer. Tell me about Con K's game really quickly. Why is he so good? Feel, touch, and functional strength. Really strong lower body. Can get wherever he needs to go. Super high feel. Always in the right spot at the right time. Insane touch from everywhere. In the paint, threes, mid-range. Too much depth to be given up as a C's fan. I mean, you're not really... Are you really giving up depth, though? Like, I don't think Simons is a long-term... I think he's like a rental. Shireman obviously isn't a rotation player. In terms of depth, you're basically only losing Hauser, no? Rookie of the year to me is Konkanippel, for sure. All right. Let's do another team. Nah, not depth, but you need to give up some picks. Oh, for sure. 100% you'd have to give up some picks to get Charlotte to even consider that. Next team I've got is Miami. I've seen a lot of people in the chat talk about Miami. Miami's revamped their offense. They're the fastest offense in basketball. So you'd be adding an elite, like S-tier transition playmaker to the fastest offense in basketball. They play a lot of like quick decision making, catch and go, which LaMelo fits. He'd obviously space the floor. And then they have a ton of defensive coverage between Davion Mitchell, Bam, Jovic, Wiggins, all these guys who are just going to really like cover all of LaMelo's weaknesses while enhancing his strengths. And I think you can do it while keeping Hero. I think they, like Wiggins, I don't know, it's tough because you're gonna have to give up some young guys. Like you don't want to get rid of Jaime. You probably have to get rid of Kasparis. We'll send him to Charlotte. We'll add Simone for the contracts, and Simone's actually been awesome this year. This trade works. So again, this is like a DEFCON worst case scenario situation. Let me ask you guys this. If Charlotte was like, we need Tyler Hero in order for this to work, what do you think? Like, would you do this if you were Miami? I would give up Jovic if needed to. Here's my thing with the Tyler Hero discussion. Like, I think Tyler Hero's an awesome player, but what's really weird is, or like weird to think about, is Miami's offense is all about not setting screens, essentially. And Tyler Hero is maybe the most screen reliant offensive player in the league. So it makes things weird. Like, what if Tyler Hero comes into this current offensive system and just isn't even remotely the same productive player he was last year because there's no more screens for him? Like, to me, the way I look at it is I think LaMelo functions better in Miami's current offensive system than Hero does. His play style, I should say. And maybe that's a hot take. And maybe it's like once Hero comes in and proves it, it'll be different. What other teams we got? Orlando. Personally, this is my favorite destination. It just makes so much sense. Orlando needs pace. They need passing. They need shooting. They need ball movement. Problem is, you're going to have to get rid of either the newly acquired Desmond Bane or Jalen Suggs, which Jalen Suggs to me has got to be like close to untouchable. He's so good. He's so good. It would entail, actually, I mean, okay, so hear me out, right? Hear me out. Anthony Black is kind of starting to ascend right now, so his value's probably at an all-time high with the way he's looked. You got to get rid of Isaac and Wendell to make the contracts work. And where does that put us? Let's see. Orlando is hard capped by the first apron by $3 million. So we got to add, I don't want to add Jace Richardson. We'll add Jet Howard. Screw it. Does this work? There we go. So this would be the framework. You need more picks to make it work because you're not giving up too many assets. But it'd be something with this framework where you can still have LaMelo, or you can still have Desmond Bane, Paolo, and Franz while adding LaMelo as the offensive punch. And this would completely shift the direction of Orlando. Maybe for the worse or maybe for the better. And the reason I say that is because Orlando's offense is not quite a disaster, but it's kind of close. But they obviously have this reliable defense, and they've been a top defense for multiple years now, but it's been at the expense of the offense. If this were to be the trade, you'd be getting rid of your best bench defender, your other best bench defender, a great defensive big, and then you'd be adding, obviously, an offense-centric player. So then your top four would be LaMelo, Desmond Bane, Paolo, and Franz. Very offensive-centric, and then either Goga or Mo Wagner in the five spot. Their depth chart would become Franz, Bane, Suggs. I forgot about Suggs, too. Wow. Franz, Bane, Suggs, Paolo, LaMelo, Goga Batadze. I'm not even going to talk about Tyus Jones. Mo Wagner, Tristan da Silva, who, by the way, Tristan da Silva is awesome. Tristan da Silva, like, that's a good player. And then you still have Jace Richardson. I think it would make sense. Not saying I would do it. I think it makes sense, and I think Orlando's offense, as currently constructed, needs a like legit point guard, like LaMelo, who's going to speed up the offense, make quick decisions, pressure defenses from the three-point line, and put guys in the right spot. Because they just very clearly missed that. Just very clear weakness on the team. And Orlando can generally protect him on defense, like you mentioned. What's up, John? How you doing? What's up, Darth Spidey? Do you think Orlando would be a top 5 offense in the East with LaMelo? I mean, that roster, yeah, if you keep Bane, Franz, and Paolo, that should be a top 5 offense in the East. And if not, that would be a complete disaster. And at that point, you got to make some tough decisions. That's true, Miles. You would probably have to then move on from Bane. Their 5 best players would be LaMelo, Suggs. Yeah, ideally, then you would trade Bane. You would flip Bane into a different trade. Like, let's assume they make this trade, right? And then your starting 5, or we'll say starting 4, is LaMelo, Suggs, Franz, Paolo. Then you go and try and flip Bane for a 5. Preferably like a defense-centric 5, maybe someone that can shoot, like a Porzingis, I guess, would make sense. Obviously, like, Porzingis is a tough pull. A Kongwu, someone like that. A versatile defensive 5 who can space the floor would be very ideal. Obviously, that's like a highly touted archetype, Miles Turner. But that would make the most sense, in my opinion. My last team in the East is the Toronto Raptors. This one kind of is like self-explanatory. Fast-paced offense, tons of ball movement, tons of length and versatility on defense. The basketball fit makes obvious sense. The problem is, do they want to blow up what they have going for them right now? I'd say no. I think I like where Toronto's at right now, but it'd be like a quickly centric trade because you'd basically be replacing quickly in the starting 5 with LaMelo. I would not give up CMB. I would not give up Grady Dick, but let's add Jacoby Walter. And obviously there'd be a bunch of picks. Like I said, I'm not messing with picks. Let's add Jamal Shed, maybe even Mogbo, just to add assets. I guess they're not even I can't even trade any of them. It's weird. But it'd be something like this. Quickly is better than LaMelo. I do not agree with that. I see where you're coming from and why you prefer LaMelo. Definitely a much better defender. I think LaMelo is just flat out just a significantly better offensive player in basically every way. I mean, yeah, if you include injuries, sure. But just fully healthy, I think LaMelo is just a considerably better offensive player in every way, with or without the ball. Besides, like, maybe Quickly's a better three-point shooter. Quickly does have a better floater, probably, but doesn't get to the rim as much, doesn't get to the line as much, not nearly the passer. Smaller, obviously. So I do think got to give that one to LaMelo, just in terms of how good they are when they're on the court. Dallas makes sense. I don't know what to make of Dallas. They've got the length in defense. They've got an elite defense. They've got no offense whatsoever. They don't play in transition at all. I don't even know how you can make this work financially. You got to just add a bunch of random contracts, right? And they don't really have assets, so I'm just gonna say no to the Mavs. They have nothing the Hornets would even want. I'm not on the Pistons train. No, I think I see the vision with it, but I don't want to mess with what the Pistons have right now. And I do think Cade and LaMelo have a little bit of a clash in their play styles that I wouldn't want to mess with. I'd much rather have like an off-ball shooter type. And obviously LaMelo can be an off-ball shooter, but I mean like a Tyler Hero type next to Cade long term. I'm not going to mess with Golden State. I think Golden State's an okay fit. But I think, well, actually, here's the thing. I think it makes sense for Golden State, but Golden State's problem is they don't have a center, like any size whatsoever. They need like a legit finishing threat center. I don't even want to get rid of Moody. I think Moody's so valuable. I'd much rather add like Buddy Hield, and obviously Charlotte wouldn't value Buddy Hield as much, but I really would not want to trade Moody unless you have to because of contracts, I guess it looks like. So yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. And the contract situation just becomes a disaster. Let's get Jokic on the Warriors. Hey, man. That's a pretty good fit. It's a pretty good fit. But yeah, I think the Warriors need to focus on a center, and they need a cheaper guy. Contracts don't really work there. Houston, same thing. The only way to get LaMelo on Houston is to trade Durant or Şengün. Makes no sense at all. Minnesota needs a point guard. They need more offensive variety. They need transition. Their transition offense is always so bad in the playoffs, and it makes no sense to me. They've got athletes. They get stops. They got guys who can get out and run. Problem is, if you're trading for LaMelo, you have to get rid of Gobert. And I still don't think people realize how much Minnesota's defense collapses if they get rid of Gobert. They just don't have that center presence. So it'd have to be like, you get rid of Gobert and you get Kalkbrenner back. Like it'd be like LaMelo and Kalkbrenner, and I don't think the Hornets would do that. So Timberwolves, I think, is kind of a shot in the dark. Just to elaborate why I think he's generally ranked by people, he's like a Halliburton on offense, but with bad decision. I don't think LaMelo's a bad decision maker. See, I think LaMelo's a great decision maker. I just think there are lows. Like, there are low moments with LaMelo. And I think, like, him being on an unserious basketball team for pretty much his entire career kind of prevents him from making decisions in the same way Halliburton does. Because there aren't as many weapons. I think Phoenix is a great fit from a basketball standpoint. I'd love to see LaMelo and Booker. I think that fit makes a lot. How did I end up with Indiana? The heck? Charlotte and Phoenix is what I meant to do. What are LaMelo's flaws? I think shot selection at times. I think lack of pace, like slowing things down, like doesn't know how to play at multiple speeds coming off of screens or in isolation. Kind of only tends to play at one speed in the half court, so you don't get a big 2-point scoring presence from him. And I think that's why his efficiency is always so up and down, because it's basically just tied to how well he shoots from three. If he gets hot from three, he has a good scoring game. If he gets cold from three, there's nothing else he can really fall back on as a scorer to produce an efficient 20, for example. And then, of course, basically almost everything on defense. Injuries, of course, but I'm just thinking about like flaws on the court. Jalen Green, would have to be, or I guess Dylan Brooks, but I'd rather keep Dylan Brooks. It'd have to be a Jalen Green trade. This actually works straight up. LaMelo for Jalen Green. Which teams do you want to see in the finals? I don't really have a preference of who I want to see in the finals. It's going to be OKC in my opinion. I think Denver and Houston pose an interesting challenge in the West, but I do think it's going to be OKC. How about a Fox LaMelo trade? Well, I like LaMelo in the Spurs, but I don't like the trade for Fox. I would rather have Fox, LaMelo, and Wemby, if possible. We'll get to that in a sec. We'll see if that's even possible financially. I don't know if it is. San Antonio. Let's see. Because I think Wemby and Fox, or LaMelo and Fox, sorry, could be a really good fit. They kind of mesh well. Vassell's the contract that makes it work. And then I guess Sohan, because you kind of have to like add some value. That works right there. Yeah, I don't think LaMelo is going to get traded. At least not this season. This is all hypothetical. If it happens, I'm just kind of talking it through what his skill set is, what his limitations are, what his strengths are, where I think he can fit, and what teams can realistically trade for him. 100%, I agree. As many playmakers around Wemby as possible. Keldon, yeah, you could structure it around Keldon and Harrison Barnes too. But I think Vassell would make sense. Like I think Charlotte would value Vassell and Sohan. The money works. I think this would just make San Antonio significantly better. If you have Fox and LaMelo, you've still got Stephon Castle, still got Barnes. Of course, you have Wemby, Luke Cornett, Dylan Harper. That's a filthy offense. That's basically just a filthy offense, and it's Wemby save us on defense. I don't know if it would work, but that offense would be like best in the league candidate. Last team I want to talk about is Portland. They've got this fast-paced offense. They've got a bunch of defensive pieces. You can make the contracts work in a variety of ways. I think it would start with Jeremy Grant because you just got to get him off your books if you're Portland. Even though he's like not a bad player, but that makes sense. And then you got to add some young assets. So is it Young Hansen? I don't know. Is it Shaden Sharp? Preferably not. Definitely not Tumani Kamara. Do you think Wemby lacks some in the paint, like non-restricted area? It looks like he's shooting at a 30 to 40% clip. For sure. I think he is still kind of awkward in those spots. At times. And touch isn't like top tier. It's good, but it's not top tier. So yeah, I do think there are some limitations there. But for the most part, I think Wemby's still a dominant paint force. Not Janssen Hunt. Wow. Do you think Chet is a legit 3-level scorer now? He looks like it. Right? The handle looks good. He's moving really well. The shot's been there. LaMelo. Chet's a monster, man. Chet's really good. Could see the Wolves going after LaMelo. I think so too. The problem is there just isn't much of a like tenable trade there. There's not much they can do to make that trade work from a contract standpoint without getting rid of a big part of their identity in Randall or Gobert. I think Detroit right now, if they stay the 1 seed, I think they're a conference finals team. I think they can make a finals push. I think they can make a finals push. I wouldn't bet on it. I do still think a healthy Cleveland and a healthy Knicks team do have a slight advantage. But Detroit is really good. Detroit's really good. AJ Mitchell's awesome, man. He's been a revelation for them with J-Dub out. But that's going to wrap it up for the LaMelo talk. I want to quickly hear from everyone in the comments. If LaMelo were to get traded, what would be your number one destination just from a basketball standpoint? That would be the most mutually beneficial, meaning LaMelo is enabled by this team to do what he does best, and LaMelo upgrades them to another level and keep it to competitive teams. Orlando, Miami. Miami. Those are kind of the two in my head, too. I think San Antonio as well, but San Antonio would be more of like a curveball. Definitely. Definitely going to talk about the rookies. Absolutely. Also, I'm going to be doing more live streams, guys. So, you can expect these hopefully a couple times a week. Where I'll just come on and do like more unscripted content. We'll call it Lakers. Why not? Just add everyone to the Lakers. The defensive weight on Wemby would be crazy. Yeah, absolutely. You convinced me on Miami. San Antonio's a Hail Mary. Yeah, I think Miami and Orlando are the two to me. LaMelo is a legit brilliant transition player and has shown the defensive chops when bought in as a gap defender. That could be a crazy ceiling for the Heat. I heavily think the Raptors. Yeah, Raptors is a good shout. Please consider a membership for your Google channel. I can't buy super chats, but I can support a channel. I used to have membership set up and I've considered it, but I don't really I don't want to ask people to buy a membership that I'm not really offering anything on. Like, I don't have any perks. There's no perks that come with it. So like, for me, I just don't feel right asking for people to become a member of my channel or pay money and all that stuff when there's no perks that come with it. You know what I mean? But if I do come up with some ideas for perks, I'll definitely consider doing memberships. For now, I gotta go. I've got some stuff to take care of. Also, I think I might go live tonight on Playback for Nuggets Rockets. So actually, I want to plug that link real quick, just in case I do decide to do that. If the memberships is just about a support thing, then yeah, I'll set it up. I always took that as more of like a perks type thing. Your fantasy team must be insane. I'm in a couple fantasy leagues, and I'm pretty satisfied with the teams I've got. I've got Jalen Johnson in one of my leagues, and he's been awesome, man. He's been awesome. So click that link. That's where I'll be live streaming games for the remainder of the season. So tonight for Rockets and Nuggets, I'll probably go live. And in on Playback, you can actually watch games with me. I can give you like basically League Pass access, and we'll do just live game coverage, right? React to the game live, break things down live. So yeah, if you're interested in joining a live stream for Rockets and Nuggets tonight, I'll probably be live on Playback. I'm trying not to lie, but sometimes I say I'm going to go live and then don't. I should be live, unless something happens. But we'll talk more in there. I really appreciate you guys tuning in today. I've got some stuff to take care of before the games tonight, and I'll catch you guys hopefully tonight.